Yep, we are live. Cool. Are we live here as well? Let me just refresh it. No. Now let it be, let the branding be there. Let's see. Hello. Let's go here. Yeah, we are live here as well, hopefully. Let me just. Cool. I'll just go here, pause it for now, a little bit, like remove this screen for now. Okay, we are live. I'll just post it on my Twitter account and let me just make sure that the chat here is overlaid. Yeah, embed for chat events, review, default, everything is fine. Embed chat, I'll just launch it. Make it like this. Let me just remove this. Let it be like so. We'll make it like this. Okay, let me also bring this back and push this like so. And cool, we are live. Now we can actually talk about things. All right. So what this stream is all about? Well, first of all, I was not live for a moment. When I say moment, I mean like about few weeks. I think 5 days back, I was live using the remix, and there is a live stream that I just keep on postponing because of certain situations at home. But anyways, since I have time now, I can just talk about things that I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to talk about in this particular stream about Redux Toolkit. So Redux Toolkit, if I just look here, not this, Redux Toolkit. I was searching about Redux Toolkit. I was looking into all the YouTube tutorials. I was looking into their documentation. And what I found was that, like, I was not able to find that thing that I thought would be something that was able to explain me better. So while I was lying down yesterday, late at night, I've just started thinking about how I will explain to myself this entire Redux toolkit if I have to explain it, because I know Redux, but I worked with it approximately 2 or 3 years back. And since then, I did not touch the Redux thing. And a lot of things happened in between, like Next.js came out and things like that. And yeah, the Redux kind of like just went into, you can say, just collapsed in a way. And then somehow it came back in one of the projects. So I was looking into it. I was trying to refresh my memory, and I hope I understood it better. And this is exactly what I'm going to be explaining in this particular video. And then we are going to be looking into one example, and hopefully we will be good to go. All right. And if you understand this explanation better, let me know. Maybe spread the word. It can help some newcomer as well, things like that. All right. Okay, I just have to calm myself down. All right, so this is entire Redux thing. We are not going to talk about the RTK query. We are just going to be talking about this Redux toolkit. All right. So, and by the way, we are also going to be talking about this particular app that we are going to look into. So let me just make it like 75%. This is particular app that I will be using kind of to explain what exactly do I need to explain here. Oh, all right. There are two extensions that you will require. One is the Redux DevTools and another is the React Developer Tools. So if you do not have those, you can just install it, and let's begin the explanation. To understand Redux Toolkit, right, there's multiple ways that I can start. I can start by installing the Redux Toolkit, and then I can just simply start on going, this is how you do this, this is how you do this, this is how you do that, and everything is what happens. And what I find in most of the tutorials is that it becomes quite overwhelming over time, that nobody understands, especially if you are a newcomer. You do not understand exactly what, why, and how, right? So let's understand what, why, and how one by one, and hopefully this will help you guys as well. Okay. Before we begin talking about the Redux, let's talk about what is the fundamental problem that arises, which is basically what was the reason behind the development of the tool like Redux. Okay. So to talk about that reason, we have to talk about the fact that this Redux exists in the landscape of React in our specific use case scenario. And anytime we are going to be talking about React, our mind should automatically go into the mode of component level thinking. So basically any application that we build using React is built using a bunch of small components. All right. So what do I mean by that? Well, this is where the story begins. So consider this is our app. Let me just make it like this. Okay. This is our app, and that this app has, let me check. Do I need the edges? No. Okay. This app has a header. All right. It has, let's say, two components here. One is right here. One is right here. Let me just make this a little big and make this a little bit big. Okay. I'll make it blue and I will make it red. I will make this as brown. All right. And this itself is going to be, let's say, green. Okay. And here we go. Cool. So this is our app, and these are all the components. So let's say this is going to be our header. Here we will have a logo. All right. Let me just make it like this. We will have a logo. I think I messed up. Wait a minute. We will have a logo here. Okay. And let me put it like this, a little bit small. Fair enough. And then we will have, let's say, a card, which is going to be another component, by the way. So assume this is a card, which is going to be counting the number of items within the card. So we can also assume this to be another component as well, like so. Okay. And should I make it like this? This is much better. Okay. All right. So then it becomes the here we can have another one, which is going to be, say, products. Maybe I should do it like this. Do it like this. This as well. This as well. And this as well. All right. So this is another component. Okay. Then this is going to be a products, where we will have another components, like, say, card. Let's make it product 1, and this will have, we'll talk about it, and this will be product 2. All right. Cool. And And here we go with this add to cart. Like this, make it small. And make it like this. What we will do is the same here. Like this. And we will do the same here as well. And let's call this as cards. Make it large, and this is it. Okay, this is exact replica of what I'm trying to build here, and that's why I have built it like this. So what I'm trying to actually explain here is, anytime you build any application, this is basically building up the story why it was necessary that you come to this Redux or solution. Okay, anytime we used to build any sort of like a React application, we by default built it in terms of small components. For example, a cart item is a component, a cart's this logo, this header is a component. First of all, this entire app is a component. Let me put it like this. This entire app is a component. Within this app, we have two more components, one which contains the cart items, one which contains the product items. Then we have a header as a component. Maybe logo can also be a component. Similarly, maybe this cart item where we are counting the bunch of items in the cart, this count is an item, is a component. Then this card itself is a component. This add to cart is going to be a button component. If we want to, we can make it. It depends on us, but essentially everything is a component. When everything is a component, there's a fundamental problem that arises within the React ecosystem, and that problem is, how do you pass the data, right? How do you pass the data from one component to another? Because in React, the flow of data passing is basically from parent to child. So the flow of data in React, flow of data is from parent to child. This is a one-way flow. That means you cannot pass any data from this particular child component to this card component. All right, that is not possible in React. If you are doing it, or if you think that it is possible, then by default you are using some sort of Redux type library on the internally already, and you just don't know about it. But essentially in React, it is not possible, right? Unlike the Angular, where you have two-way data binding, in React you only have one-way data binding, and that is from parent to child. That means that if the data exists in the app, then it can be passed down to its children, and this passing down is known as prop drilling, aka properties are being passed down from parent to a child. Fair enough? Okay. Therefore, there arises a situation or a problem, which is to say, in this child component, there is a button. Maybe this is also a component. And my use case is that when I click on this add to cart button, few things should happen. One, this particular component, which is by default, which will be, let's say, empty, like so. Okay. It should automatically, let me group it, by default, which should be empty, right? The moment I click on this, there should arise a component right here. All right, so that's use case number one. But also this 0 should automatically become 1. All right, so what happened here? When I clicked on the add to cart component or add to cart button within this product cart component, I want that action to update my data, okay, in two other components. One may be a sibling, one may be somewhere else. Anywhere in this app, I want to update that value of that data, which means I am trying to break the way the data flows in the React. Because if I have to pass some sort of data from here to this component, it is not possible. Then from here to this component, it is also not possible. So what will we do? Okay, what should I do in that case? Now, the normal way of understanding this, one of the first solution that you can think within the boundary of React itself is, we will find the common parent component, and it is in that parent component, in that common parent component, we will define the data that is required by both the child component. Not only the data, but also the actions that is required by both the child component. Sorry about that. What do I mean by that in this scenario? So let me just start writing it. Let me just create some sort of like a hierarchy here. Okay. In this condition, this is our parent, which is app. You can understand it as a root. This is our parent component. Okay. So I will just mark it as root or parent. Cool. Now, this parent component has the child component, which is, first is going to be header. Second is going to be cart item. Okay. And third is going to be products. Cool. Now, the way I thought in my mind that it will go when I will teach it, that went too fast. This is taking some time, but anyways, stick with me. You will understand it better. Hi, Dheeraj. Anyways, so this is the header. This is the, within the app, we have header, we have cart, we have product. Now, within the header, we have a cart count. So let me put it like this. This is cart, not cat, cart count. Within this cart items, we have a card component. Okay. And then from within this product, like this, we have another card component. Cool. So this is our second level parents, and these are you can understand it in a better way that these are our children. Now, in our requirement, maybe I can just make it like this. In our requirement, when we perform an action, in this component, okay, or in this component, cool. When we perform an action on this component or this component, the data should update in, let me make it like this. So data should update in this component and in this component. All right. Maybe I can remove this and I should be able to do it like this. Okay. When we perform an action on this component, the data should update in this cart count component as well as this cart component within this cart items. Okay. That means there has to be a parent in which this and this are common. There has to be a common parent for all these components. Otherwise, there is no way to share the data between these siblings or between these components, which are not connected by, which are not directly connected by each other in a parent-child relationship. Okay. So let's go one by one, one level top. That means if what is the parent of this card component? Well, it is a product, which is this product's parent is this. Now, if I put my action in this and my data in this, is it possible for me to pass that data in this, and this? Not really. By the way, just understand there's a lot of background noise that you might hear. Neglect it. I am in completely different home at this point. Okay. If you pass, if you define the data in this parent component of this card, is it possible to pass the data here and here, or here and here? Not really, because again, this component, right, is not the parent of, it's not a child of this component. So okay, we have to go one level up again, and then for in our limited application, we reach to the app, and here we find that is it the common parent of this and this and this? Yes, the app component becomes the common parent for this, this, and this. Basically, where we perform the action and where we retrieve the data or update the data. So that means we will be forced to initialize the data in our app component, as well as we will be forced to initialize the action in our app component. And then we will be passing down those action and data one component at a time to its basically to our children, and those children will pass down that data to another children, and things like that will happen till we are good to go. And then when we perform an action here, that will give the signal to its parent component, that will again give the signal to its own parent component, which is a common shared parent component, where the action will be performed and the data will be updated. Once the data is updated in this application, the entire app will re-render, which means all its children will re-render, and the new data will be passed down again to the required component, which will update the data. Okay, so this is the fundamental pattern that you will use if you're not using any other sort of, if you're not using anything outside of the React. Now, understand one another important fact is that these tools like Redux was created when there was no such concept of create context in the React ecosystem. Okay, they came very later, way later. So when these tools were being built, only this way of management of state was possible within the React applications. Okay, so let us go. Now I am debating whether I should show you how this entire thing will work in practical, or should I just simply keep on explaining the entire thing first and then show practical one by one. Yeah, let me just simply explain everything first. Okay, so till this point, I hope this story is clear till this point, right? So first, the step one of the story is we have an app, we have a bunch of use case. To fulfill that use case, we find that we are in loggerhead with the solutions that are provided within the React ecosystem. Okay, so the only way that we can actually fulfill our use case of performing action in this component, which is not the parent of any other component, yet want to update the data in those components, there's only one way to actually do that, and that is prop drilling, by finding the common parent component and defining the data and the action there, and then passing the those data as well as those action, aka properties, aka prop drilling, which is the entire method. We are passing those properties to their respective children where it is required. Okay, and finally that will automatically do the trick that we want to do. Now, for this small application, it is very good. Maybe it works. Maybe 1-2 level down of prop drilling is not even, worth the installation of another Redux like library. But the problem is that in any production level application, you have at least 100 to 200 to 300 to 400 to 500 and maybe sometimes thousands of components, and that means each and every single component will re-render every time you do the data mutation in your app component, which is the root component. Okay, and most of the time you will find that eventually app component is the common parent component. There's no way around that entire scenario. Okay, so what is the solution then? Well, good minds in the React ecosystem, or you can say brilliant minds in the React ecosystem, thought, okay, if this is one of the way that we can actually do the things, why is it not possible that we can just perform an action here, right? And rather than defining the states or aka data and action in this common parent, why can't we define it somewhere else? And from there, we will simply pull it into our required component, right? So for example, if you want to actually do this, and if you want to implement this entire solution, you will be by default be using things like use state. Okay, I'm pretty sure you guys have already used it. So use state is something that you will use, or basically this is how you will store the data. Either use state, but for the most part you will use reducer. Previously it was just use state, but then we can use either of them, right? You will see why I'm putting the use reducer here as well. And then you will have basically this will provide the data as well as the action that has to perform on that data. Okay, so this is what you will use in order to do this entire fulfill this entire use case. Okay, so basically you're defining the state as well as the mutation that should happen on that state in this app. Okay, the brilliant mind in this industry or in the React ecosystem thought, why not do something like this? Rather than storing the data using the use state in the common parent component, why can't we have, let me just group this, copy it and put it like this. Okay, why can't we have, apart from this situation where we don't have to use this, we don't want to use it, or maybe we don't have to use it. Let me ungroup it. Okay, why can't we have something like another outside storage system, right? This is going to be a completely separate storage system where we will have our action. Okay, we will have our action here only. We will also be storing our data here only. Okay, and then whichever component requires the action, we will supply the action to that component from here. And whichever component requires the update of that data, we will supply the data from the updated data from here to that component, right? And in this way, we will avoid all the prop drilling. Okay, not to mention, we will also avoid, if done correctly, we will also avoid the re-render of the components which do not require re-render. So for instance, in this above scenario, when we perform an action in this particular component, the only places that should have re-rendered, or the only component that should have re-rendered, are the cart items component, because that's where the card will be added, and the card count component if we have made it as a card count. Otherwise the header component where this card data from 0 to 1 it becomes. Okay, But right now what will happen is that this will be re-rendered, this will be re-rendered, this will be re-rendered, this will be re-rendered, so will be this, so will be this. Okay, and if you have 1,000 components, all of them will be re-rendered. In this situation, if done accurately, you can say, then only this component and this component, or you can say this component and this component, will be re-rendered. The rest of the components won't be re-rendered, right? And this global state, you can say, this thing which is storing our action as well as our data, was called in the Redux ecosystem store. I hope that is clear. In the Redux ecosystem, this is called store. Now, then came the idea, okay, fine, we will be defining the global, this is going to be acting like a global state management solution, right? Redux is a global state management solution because any component can actually fetch the action so that it can perform that action, and any component can actually fetch the data so that it can update the data. Okay, action basically mutates the data, and that's what it is. Cool. So that's why, since all the component in our application can access that from a common global data center, then this became kind of like the name that was given to it was store, and this became a global state management center or solution, you can say, global state management solution. Now, when it comes to state management, a little bit of segue here. So let's think about what the state management is all about. It will be very brief, so don't worry about it. So state management is, in React applications, can be divided into 3 parts. One is going to be local state management, local client. Let's divide it into 2 parts. Client side state management. Okay, client side state management, and we will have server side state management, like this. Okay, and this client side state management can be divided into local, global. The example of global is Redux Zustand. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a German word. There's a Jotai create context, which is now available in React ecosystem as well by default, etc. Maybe there are a bunch of other things because this is a land of JavaScript and I have no idea how many keep on popping up every day. And in terms of local, you have use state and you have use reducer. Now, this Redux that you will basically you use or you have used, this Redux is nothing but a global use reducer. It's basically, that's why within the Redux you have things like reducers. It's a global reducer. Okay, that was a segue, nothing more than that. I will go into this. Let's come back here. Okay, then at this point, now the question is, fine, we will have our global state store system that is understandable, but like, how should we actually go about doing things here? You know, like, how should I go about, like, is there some sort of like a mechanism that we should be following so that there is no such thing as mismatch, or there's no such thing as some sort of an issue during the syncing process of the data? Sorry, some sort of like, because we have to maintain the immutability principle, we have to maintain a bunch of other things that has to follow the React ecosystem. So how should I basically, how should we go about making sure that everything there is followed? So previously, before the Redux Toolkit, the Redux team came up with this solution. Okay, and now let's explain that solution. Just a moment, I have to pull something, so I will be removing this, it's a kind of like some sort of like a secret. Just wait for a moment. Thank you, Dheeraj. Yeah, it's kind of like a secret because I'm looking into whether I do have that particular project with me, or should I pull it from my personal GitHub. Wait a minute. I'm pretty sure I had it. Yeah, I should be pulling it from my personal GitHub. Just a moment. There was a thing that I built way back around 2021 or 2020 something. Let me just download this zip file, and this will be enough, hopefully. Let me just pull it from the yeah, let me just put it in the desktop. Can I close this? Yes. And finally, let's see, should I open it? How should I open it? Go here, we have this. Open it in code. Let me check. Wait a minute. Everything is fine. Hopefully everything is fine. All right, cool. I think everything is fine. I can show it, and if there's any problem, then yeah, it's going to be a disaster. But anyways, so let's go back. So okay, so the Redux team came up with this bunch of jargons, or you can say bunch of things that you will keep on encountering if you are following the Redux scenario. So let's explain those jargons. I will write the heading of Redux jargons. Okay, and then we can divide these jargons into two. I'll tell you what those two are. One is conceptual jargon. Another is implementation jargon. Okay. At this point in 2023, all you have to worry about is this conceptual jargon, because a lot of implementation jargon, and when I say jargon in terms of implementation, I'm talking about the entire tedious process of implementing this entire Redux scenario in React. That is kind of like taken care of. Hello. Hi. So that is kind of like taken care of in this new Redux toolkit. Okay. Now, what are the conceptual jargon? And I tell you, I'll show you that's why I was pausing this entire, I made this entire thing blank because I wanted to show you the previous implementation. Okay. What is the conceptual jargon? Well, there are a bunch of conceptual jargon. Let's start one by one. The first is the store itself. Like, what is the store in the first place, right? We talked about the store. It is basically a global state management, or global reducer. Let's call it that only. Yeah, I can just put it like this for now. This is global reducer for managing React client side states, aka data. Okay, data and action. Then another jargon is, well, actions, right? These are basically the action that you have to perform so that the data can be mutated. So these are actions. Maybe I can put it like this: reducers. Okay, or reducer. There's a problem here. I'll just show you. There's a difference between reducer and reducers. Okay, so these are the actions that is performed to mutate the data, aka state, and I think, yeah, that will be it. Second, and then third jargon will be dispatch. Okay, this is how you perform an action rather than doing it directly. Okay, so we have the store, we have the reducer, and we have the dispatch. Fair enough. Because we are learning the Redux toolkit, there will be a scenario of called slice. We'll talk about this slice because this is quite interesting, and I will be explaining it using some sort of like a bread slice example that will be much better. In code you will see. And finally, after the slice, there has to be a way that you can grab that reducer. Okay, so that basically you have to perform some sort of like action, so you can grab that dispatch. Okay, so that is done using use dispatch hook, which is a part of react-redux. It's not a part of Redux. This hook is not a part of Redux. This is a part of react-redux. And if you don't want to use it, well, by all it is much easier to just use it. Otherwise, you can create your own custom hook, which is called use dispatch, and make it work the same way, right? This is the hook that most of the people during their flow will use in each and different component to extract the action, or the method in a way so that they can perform an action. So this particular card component will use that use dispatch hook to get the action, and also will extract the action as well, so that it can utilize that dispatch method to perform an action. You do not perform an action directly. Okay, you have to use a dispatch. That is the inner working of Redux itself, so let's not worry about it. That's how it works. Just understand that way. And finally, you have something called, I think it is use reducer, and this use reducer is also coming from react-redux, and this will allow us to get or fetch the data, cool, in our component. So this is the conceptual way. Again, store is the global reducer, where we are managing the client side states, which is data, not action, is just data. Okay, then there's a reducer, which is basically, this is an object, let's call it an object, where we define actions that is performed to mutate the data. Okay, so it's basically an object. Reducer is an object where we define actions that is performed to mutate the data. All these definitions will come in handy when we start to code. Dispatch is how you perform an action rather than doing it directly. Slice, we will talk about what it is. Use dispatch is a hook that is provided by react-redux, and use reducer is a hook which is provided by react-redux. Use reducer is used inside a component which requires a data to fetch the mutated or updated or up-to-date data. Okay, use dispatch is a hook which provides you a method called dispatch, which you use in order to perform an action. Okay, that is a conceptual jargon. Hope that is clear. If it is not clear, when we go back to this code, you will understand what it is all about. Then implementation jargon. Now, I will show you using this old project of mine. It has a backend. By the way, this project no longer works because Heroku just destroyed this entire free tier, and everything is like way too old. And if you'll go to the package JSON, you will find that it is also built using create react app, and you will also find that it has like 17th version. By the way, it is not using 17, it is using I think 15, 16 or something. I just updated it for the heck of it, and that completely broke this entire thing. I updated it last year and didn't do anything else, and that's about it. If you look here, you will also find that we are using react-redux. Okay, and if we just talk about the Redux, you will see that I'm using Redux, I'm using Redux Thunk, I'm also using DevTools extension. The Redux Toolkit has all of this internally. I mean, when I say that, I mean all of this is internal to Redux Toolkit. All right. So what do I mean when, let's see how this entire thing actually worked. This is the implementation jargon, which is old, but you need to understand where we came from and in order to appreciate how easy it is right now. Cool. So in this app, right, in this app, you have something called, well, let's see. Yeah, here it is. So in this Redux, you have something called store, right? And if you look at this, this is a very old implementation, so don't worry much about it. I'm just showing you how it is actually being done so that you can appreciate the new way of doing things. So if you look here, there's from the Redux, we are taking out the create store method, we are taking out the combine reducers, apply middleware, bunch of things. Then there's a thunk from Redux Thunk. Thunk is basically used for any sort of asynchronous operations, aka fetching data from an API, modification of data using post requests through an API, things like that. Okay. Then there's a compose DevTools, which is no longer required. And then we have a bunch of reducers that we are, importing reducers. And then we are combining like our reducers. There's a bunch of them. You don't have to worry about that. We are not going to be tackling this much deep. This is a way too big of a project, by the way. Then I'm utilizing some sort of like a local storage, so that for, I don't remember for what reason. Then there's an initial state, and which is like getting the initial state from our local storage. Then there's a middleware, which is a thunk. And then we are getting a store where we are passing the reducer, passing the initial state, and then we are passing this compose DevTools and all of that, right? What you have to look here is the amount of code that is required to create a store, okay, in the old method. Now let's go inside this. See, previously we used to have something called reducers, actions, and action creators. Actions are basically this. Okay, you perform some action, card add item, card remove item, card add save item. Basically what we used to do was we were trying to, let me just put it like this, we used to define it as a constant so that we don't mess up this naming in different areas where we require in our entire code. So that is one. I have copied it. I'll show you why I've copied it. Now this is a card constant. Let's go inside the card action creator. It is here in this action creator. By the way, this is my naming. It is not used to be this action creator. What most people will do is call it actions. Within that, they will have this, and within that, they will define these. I mean, this can be defined internally here. These are actions only. You don't have to worry about it. Okay. So this is the actions, which is basically a function. Actions are basically functions, and which are taking some like parameters. It is then dispatching, and can you see the dispatch using the async, and you're getting the state. Then you're doing all sort of things. We are dispatching it within this action. We are dispatching it with this type, with this action, with this card item and all of that. And we're doing a bunch of things. The moment we dispatch any action, this is catched by reducers. So we are going to come back to this card reducer. Now notice this, right? Now, when we come to the card reducers, we'll find that we are getting the state, and which has, this is basically initial state. Then we are getting the action, and based on the type, if you look here, this is a type. Based on that type, we are utilizing these constants, okay, and then we are simply performing the bunch of actions. And if you look here, we are doing a lot of dot 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 dot, things like that. Now if you're basically, what used to be done was, most people in production, they used to use a library called immer, which is something that Redux Toolkit uses by default. Okay, so you do not have to do all these sort of like dot 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 scenario. This is basically to maintain the referential integrity, which is part and parcel of how the React works. Two objects, for example, in use state or use reducer, unless and until the reference of the objects are not different, there will be no re-render. And if there will be no re-render, even though the data will be updated, that won't be visible to the UI. AKA, it's a waste of, it's a useless thing. If it does not update for your user, it doesn't matter whether it is updating internally or not. Most likely it will be a lot of issues. Okay. So we have a bunch of actions and all of that. See, and this is another action. Again, we are performing a bunch of actions and all of that. Similarly, we are going to do a bunch of things, and this starts getting like super hefty. Okay, so again, let me just use this as card action item, and here it is. Cool. All right, so this was how we used to do it previously, right? We have to make sure, just to make it like seriously, I'll go back here. Okay, so in terms of the implementation, let's look into the old way first so that you can appreciate the new way. In the old way, we had to define the thunk separately. Not define, I mean install the thunk. Okay, we have to install the thunk separately. Then we had to create the store. Then we had to create actions in depth, let's call it that. We had to create dispatches in depth, I guess. You can basically, we have to do a lot of things in depth. We have to also create reduce. We have to do that in new way as well. We have to basically, let's put it this way, we had to write a lot of lot of code to perform a simple update. Okay, so that's what we used to do. Now let's see the new way. In the new way, it's quite easy, by the way. We will be creating a store, but then we will do something like slice. Okay, one more thing. We had to make sure we are not modifying the state directly. Okay, we use immer or spread operator. Okay, this is what we used to do. Now in the new way, first of all, we will have to create the store. We will create a slice. This slice will take care of creating actions, creating reducers, okay, mutating state in valid fashion without us explicitly making sure it maintains referential integrity, right? All of that will be done through slice, and that's about it. That's it. We don't have to worry much about yeah. So that's basically it. Okay, then we have, let me just go through this. Okay, I think everybody is here only, which is good. Cool. So that's about it. Okay, this is a new way. Then there's another jargon that came up, which is referential integrity, which is something that if you are a newcomer, you won't understand. So let me just make you understand what it is all about. If I go to the console, right, here it is, referential integrity. Think about it like this. Is 1 equal to 1 in JavaScript? Yeah. 2? No. Fair enough. We understand that 1 equals 1. What about 1 equal 1? True. Fine. What about foo equal foo? True. Fine. Fair enough. So what you will find is all the primitive data types in JavaScript are actually being compared by values. You can understand it that way. Whether it is happening below it is different, but this is how you can actually understand it, because that's what is happening. But when it comes to objects, that means this or this, right? Or functions, which is basically an object. Things like that is compared using something called references. Now, what is references? What is basically references? So in computer science, again, there are two types of memories. Let me just make it like this. Computer science memory segue. Okay. I wonder if I have done this. Let's call it computer science memory. Okay. In computer science, you have two types of memories. One is stack. Another is heap. Okay. Now, anytime you're defining things like, and this is knowledge from C, maybe it does not translate directly to JavaScript in some caveats, but more or less this is how it actually works. So anytime you define a primitive data type like one, string, number string, boolean, I don't know, null, undefined, things like that, these are going to be inside the stack. Now if think about it like this, null equal null or not? True. What about undefined? Not true. But what about this? This is true. We'll talk about it. This is different. So triple equal is what most React libraries will use, because that is where the type of these values are also equated, which is basically what we require in terms of referential integrity maintenance. So understand, these are any type of like primitive values will be inside the stack memory, but any type of dynamic value will be actually stored inside this heap memory. So for example, anytime I define a object, right? Let's say I'm defining an object called A1 B1. Cool. And I am defining it in 2 times. That means all I'm saying is let obj or object1 equals A1 and B2, and let ob2 equals A1 and B2, right? What I have done is I have defined in the heap memory 2 of them, right? So this value of A and B as 1 1 and 1 1, let me just put it as 2, is inside the heap memory. So what goes inside this stack memory? Well, here's what actually happened. Here 1 became this ob1, and this contained some hexadecimal address 1. This hexadecimal address now points to this. Similarly, when we created the another one, it created another hexadecimal address 2. If there's any JavaScript wizard who can correct me on this, because like I mentioned, this is coming from my understanding of how memory works in computer science. So just make sure that this is how I'm understanding it better or not. This is here. Okay. Thanks, Dheeraj. In JavaScript, we have everything in heap and references are passed in call stack. Yeah, call stack is basically what a stack is all about. They implemented it differently, but I'm pretty sure that that's what they are doing. Call stack by definition means stack, right? So if it is containing the memories, right, everything, even if they are doing it everything in heap, there's somewhere they are managing in terms of like, okay, some sort of like a differentiation is happening. So maybe I can do, that's why I mentioned it as a computer science memory way of doing things, just to explain the referential integrity. I haven't ventured deep into the JavaScript end of the things. Maybe I will look later, but basically in terms of how the object behaves, it will be the same concept. What is happening is this is reference A or reference 1, this is reference 2. So now if we say ob1 equal ob2, it will be false because the value here is different from the value here, right? However, if we say ob1 a equal ob2 a, this will be true because the value of 1 is still the same as value of 1. Okay, Dheeraj, can you give me a link where I can read about the way the JavaScript memory works? Because last time I checked, the concept, which is like how the memory behaves in terms of stack and heap, should be the same, regardless of what language is being implemented, right? Maybe they have implemented it differently, but the fact that the primary primitive values will be compared by value and the non-primitive like object values will be compared by reference should be the same. Maybe I'm understanding wrong, but this is how the computer science, or maybe I should call it C level of memory management, happens this way. And we can apply the concept here as well. Thanks for correcting me, by the way. If just provide me some link, I'll look into it. Cool. So this is what is happening right now. Anytime it is false in React and in Redux, that's when the state will change. That's when the UI will be updated. Otherwise, the UI will not update. Give you an example. Let's go to my, I can close this old way of doing things, right? I hope this state old method is quite rusty. So you might have already saw it. Fair enough. Let's look at my new React Redux Toolkit, application. What I have done is this time I'm using the Vite, which is the latest way of doing things. So if you look at my package.json, I have a package called reduxjs toolkit. I have React DOM, React Redux is necessary. There's another package called Retch, which is just fetch, but better fetch. I can say that. There's a prettier installed, which is for the sake of formatting. I have a bunch of dev dependencies like Tailwind, basically all the 4 plugins of Tailwind. Then I have, because I'm using TypeScript this time, so all the types are here. There's also auto prefixer, a lot of Tailwind way of setting Tailwind basically. ESLint and all of that. Post CSS is Tailwind. Prettier is here. Prettier Tailwind plugin is for auto sorting the classes. Tailwind merge is something that I'm using with combination of CLSX for better Tailwind management. TypeScript and Vite. Okay, nothing else, is just Vite, React, TypeScript, SWC project, and then a bunch of setup using Prettier, Tailwind, and that's it. If you look at my Prettier RC, you will find there's a plugin installed here, which is being passed Prettier plugin Tailwind CSS and a little bit of Prettier RC situation. Then in the Prettier ignore, because I just created it a few moments back, that's why a lot of things is not present here. So we will have all of these as like, excluded, that these should not be, prettified. Cool. So that is done. Then you will see that inside my SRC, I have also, let's go inside this Tailwind, TS config. So TS config is as what Vite sets. Okay, fair enough. Then you have this, which is again what Vite set up. This is Vite. this is Tailwind configuration. All I have done is that extended this. Basically, I have set this screen size of 2 pixel to this pixel rather than 1536. Doesn't matter. Basic Tailwind setup. Then I've cleaned up few things in the main JSX. Okay, for now, let me just remove this and remove this. This is my Redux thing, so we'll remove it for now. So this is basically what you will get, an app wrapped inside the strict mode, and this is going to be taking this index CSS. If you look at the index CSS, all I have done is basically this inside the root ID, so that my footer always remains at the bottom, and these are basically the Tailwind classes, utilities. Okay, then in the app, this is where I have coded a bunch of things. You will find that I have asset is like basically useless. We will not talk about the app for now. I'll make you see what it is all about. Basically now we are in the implementation part because we have already done all the understanding in concept. So there's that. We have a types, which is going to be taking care of the products TS. This GitHub repository will be available after this live session. I guess I can just make it available. You guys can actually look into it. Anyways, this is my product props, which has like name, description, price, image created at an ID. Similar here, which is like products and counts. Fair enough. Now, this is my utils where I am just saying, basically it's a configuration for this Tailwind thing. So that's what it is. You can look into it. Basically, I'm exporting my TW merge from Tailwind merge, then CLSX from CLSX, and this class value, which is a type. So I'm whatever the classes that I will get, I'm spreading it, and then I'm first passing it to CLSX, then I'm merging it. It's basic configuration. If you don't know what this is, just check it out. There's a video that I will be releasing eventually in few days regarding this way of setting up the Tailwind. Then inside the components, I have containers and UI, and we have a products component where I am fetching using the mock API. I'm fetching a bunch of products, which is only 2. I'm getting it. I'm managing all the errors that might arise. Then I'm getting my JSON. I'm setting this product, which is right here. And then I'm catching the error. This is inside the use effect. And then I'm looping through it and I'm passing it inside my card. This card is basically inside this UI component, which is taking all the products. Then it has a bunch of Tailwind styles using this image and all of that. And here it is. And it has one button called add to card. Finally, we have a footer. We have a header. I'm not using any React DOM and something. It's just a very simple example. So just this anchor will help. Then here we have this component as 0. So in our situation, we are not having this as separate component, but if you want, if you want, you can actually have this as a simple component itself, like this entire thing. We can just cut it. You can go inside this. We can say card count.tsx. Then we can export default function card count, and we will return this way. Here I can pass now as like count. This will be count. This will be number. And finally, let's pass this as count. Fair enough. Let's go back here. We will say card count. And here I will simply pass the count as 0 for now. Cool. So this is my entire situation. And then if you look at this containers, right, I have a wrapper where I am basically saying container, and this is exporting the container. What this container is doing is it is utilizing this CN function, which is Tailwind function, and it is getting this component props and FC functional component. It is defining this. I want this to return as diff, then it is getting the children. then whatever the rest of the props that is available inside the div, then it is utilizing this cn method to first pass its own required classes, which is the maximum screen size should be of width 1440 pixel, it should be mx auto, it should be have a padding of left and right something of run rem. Then it is passing the rest. If I am passing from here, say class name, then that is what is being passed here as well, and then the children, and that's it. Okay, so it's basically a kind of like a container. That's it. So this is my entire setup. Let me just close everything. I hope this is like clear what is the setup here. Let me just go back first. Cool. All right. So now if you check about this, I'll just refresh it. Okay, now if you check about this, I should be having all of this intact. Fair enough. So we talked about this way, right? The very first thing, now we are going to do all the practicals of the explanation that I just gave you. I will show you the problem first. Then I will show you how the Redux toolkit actually solves it. And we'll see about doing things that way. Okay, the first thing is the base implementation. When I say the base implementation, what I mean is we will use this way of implementing things. Okay, without any Redux. So here's what I want. It's the same thing that I just mentioned you. When I click on this add to cart, cart should appear here, and this should actually update. So let's go about doing things. Watch me first. If you want, I don't know, should I just give this entire thing? But after this entire thing is over, you will have this entire thing with you as a GitHub. Okay, cool. So this is my app, and in this app you will find that I have a header, then I have a main, and within this main, inside the aside, I have a cart items, and here I have a products. Okay, what I want to do is when I click on inside this card, when I click on this add to cart, okay, when I click on this add to cart, then something should pass to this this card items should then give me the card items, right? When I click, let me repeat it again. When I click on add to cart, this should fill the card items, which is required in this card items component, and that should be passed as a product in this card items, which again will use this entire thing. Now, apart from this, I will also pass is card item, and here I will pass is card item, which is just an optional, and this will be a boolean. And here I will say is cart item. If that is the case, then remove from cart, otherwise add to cart. Okay, that should do it. Cool. So in my cart item thing, I will also pass is cart item, and that's it, which is a boolean. Whereas in products, this is not the case. Okay, all right. Now what does that mean? Well, first of all, let us check where we want the data. This card item is nothing but a view thing, so we are not going to do anything here. What we have to do here is basically perform some sort of like an action on this. Okay, we have to perform some sort of an action. So on click, perform action. Fair enough. Let's get this perform action from here. Perform action. Right now, you may think that you can actually, define this perform action and co-locate it inside this card itself, like function perform action. You can do it. The problem is, like I mentioned, there's no way to do anything here so that things actually fetch here I mean, in simple React terms, it is not possible. There are like React query and a bunch of things that you can actually utilize nowadays. But in very simple terms, when the Redux was being developed, this is not possible. So we have to push this perform action one step above. So that means we have to define it in the parent of this card. Okay, fair enough. Let's go here. First of all, let me just type perform action, and for the sake of quickness, I'll just make it as any, which is not something that you do in production, but fair enough, it works. What is this? Specify a different type. Unexpected any. Let me just make it like this. Perform action is here, so let's put it this way. For now, let's put it this way. Okay. Now here in this production and this card items, both of them are the parent of card. So where should I define it? Well, we can define it here as well, right? We can define this perform action here. First of all, let's just pass the perform action here, which is going to be perform action. And let's pass the same thing here as well. Perform action. Okay. Now the question is, should I define it here or should I define it here? Okay. Second question is, like, basically what should we actually, like, if I am defining it like say in this, then how should I get the access to this? So that means we have to go one step above as well. Fair enough. What is the parent of this products and this card? Then we will look into it and we find that it is, end of the day, it is app in our scenario. So we will say, okay, fair enough, let's call it this. Here we will define two actions. One, add to cart. Let me know if this is getting confusion or confusing. Okay, I'll check whether, like, is there anything like confusion here or not. Okay, we'll have two actions. One is add to cart. Then we will have remove from cart. All right. And for the sake of simplicity, I'm not going to be passing much from here. Okay, what I'm going to do is inside this products, I will say perform action. And this will be taking add to cart. Then this perform action will come to this as here. And let's call it any. For some reason, it is not working. So let's call it function. No. Fair enough. Let's see. We'll see what can be done here. And then this perform action is automatically going to be passed to this this card. Similarly, we will do the same thing. Here we'll say perform action and we'll say perform action as, let's call it void one more time. And here it is what we are passing. In this, we will copy this, we will paste it like this. And rather than add to cart, we will say remove from cart. Okay. So in the add to cart, now we can actually do few things. First, we somehow have to, increase the count. We somehow have to do, basically, once we have defined these actions here, then we also need a way to manage the data state in this application itself as well then, right? That means this card items cannot be a part of this card items. It also has to be taken from here and put it like this. Similarly, let me just make it as card items. And I'll make it as card items, which is going to be product props of array. Then we can actually remove this. All right, we will remove this use state as well. If you're confused, all I'm doing is the first step. I'm finding the common parent component and I'm shifting the action as well all the data that is required in all the sibling components or child components in that parent component. That is all I'm doing, nothing else. Then I will take this products from here. I will also paste it in the app. Okay. From here, I will take this as products and I'll take it as products, which is going to be product props, which I have already defined. Then I will remove this. And we will also need here set products. So let's pass set products. We will call it set products. Let's go back here. What is the set products all about? Well, let's bring this state. Let's bring this product props. Now let's see. It's assigned, but it is not used. So set product is of type dispatch and all of this. So let's copy this. This is just for the sake of TypeScript. If you are not using it, you don't have to worry about it. This is my so-called set products. This does not exist on type products set products. Yes, I am not passing it. So we'll just come to this. We'll pass it like this. Let's see what is the issue. Does not exist on type. It does, right? Okay. Fair enough. All right. So here we are. And then we will also pass the products here as products. Okay. Now in this card items, we're going to do the same thing here as well. And it says that it is missing dependency. What we will do is nothing here is actually missing. It's just some sort of like a problem, I guess. So let's put it like this, right? Okay. Now we are going to go inside this card items. Let's also pass set card items. Put it here. Put it here. It's the same thing that I'm doing like I did before. Put it here and here. Cool. Then here we will say set card items, and here we will say set card items. We'll go back to the products. We will copy this, paste it, and that's it. Then here we can, let's see, we have set products as set products. Here we are using it. We'll use it eventually here as well. All right. So the first thing we succeeded in doing is we have passed the product here. We have passed the use like set products here as well as the products here as well. Now in this products, I'm calling the use effect, which I will have to call in this app itself, like this and this, not this, where it is here, and I'll just paste it like this. Cool. So I'm calling the updated thing here. Then I need not do anything in terms of set products even now for this. Cool enough. So maybe I can remove it. I'll see. Let's make it optional for now. We'll see. Let's remove this. Okay. Now here in this, we'll see what we can do. Now let's check whether everything is working fine or not. So everything is quite working fine. Let me just refresh it. Cool. Everything is working fine. The way it was working, it is working just fine. Now, when I click on this, right, this should increase and this should increase. So let's do that. We'll talk about in the app, when the add to cart is performed, I simply want to do two things. First, let's have this as, const of cart items count, which will be cart items of length, right? So anytime the cart items actually changes, this will be a new value anyways, so we don't have to maintain it inside the state. This will be a waste of effort in terms of memory and everything. Just do it like this, because if this change or this change, this app will re-render. If this app will re-render, this will be a new variable with new value, which will be passed towards our card items, which we inside our header. So let's pass it here. Okay, and then we will go inside this header, and here we will call it like how it is, and here we will pass it like so. Fair enough. We are again prop drilling the values from where we need it, nothing else, because this data, this thing, either we have to pass this and get the length there, or we can get the length here and simply pass the less amount of data to header, and it is the same thing. Fair enough. Okay, now I want to update the card. There are two things I have to do. First, I have to simply put a new value in this. Okay, so let's go inside my products, inside my card. I'm performing an action. This will give me all the state. Hopefully when I'm going to perform the action, it will give me all the state. Or what I can do is I can get this product here. So let's redefine it for now. I will perform the action, which will be getting the product. Now this will shout at me. Fair enough. So let's go inside this here. I'll make it as product, which will take the product props, and let's see, it's declared but values never used. What it is, right, this will take the product, will be of product props, then it will be okay for now. TypeScript is very, I am telling you. Okay, once we have the product, I will do is I will say new, let's see, set the, basically I have to get all the old products first. So I will say modified card items equals array all the old card items, and then simply add the product. That's about it. Before that, all we can do is we can say delete product.id, right? What it says, operand or delete operator must be optional. Okay, so let it be the ID itself, because we are not having the database. So this is my modified card items. So now I will do card items and modified card items. Fair enough. Now when I click on that, this will happen. What about the remove from card? Well, remove from card is going to be taking the same thing. So here in this perform action, we will pass what I have done. We'll pass the ID only, which is product, not this, I think it is card item dot ID. Here I will have ID, which is going to be a number. I'm going to have a string. Okay, let's call it like a string. Fair enough. And here I will have ID is going to be of string. I know for my particular use case, it's basically going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and things like that. This is perform action, void is not assignable to what? Okay, 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 okay. Here also I have to do the product or product props. Okay, pretty sure this is done. Then inside the card, this is perform action. What I'm doing, wait a minute. Here it is perform action, which is taking this, and in the products itself, it is taking just perform action. Okay, I cannot do it this way. I have to maintain this. I have to make sure that I'm doing it this way only. Then here I will not be performing action anything here, because technically this is going to be the same. I'm just simply going to pass it here, which will perform the action in this card itself only. And all I'm doing is that here I'm performing the action as in the same. Let me just get it for the sake of simplicity here. There's a better way to do it, but for now I can just do it this way. Okay, then I will say get all my, like card items, which is the new card items. So modified card items equals, I'm going to go and say card items, then I'm going to filter it. What I'm doing, this is a filter. Then I'm going to say product, get the product ID, which is not equal whatever the product ID is here. Let's make it item so that it is understandable what is happening here. And then I'm just simply going to say the same thing, card items as modified card items. I'm hoping that every logic is clear, because it's been so long that I have done this React way of doing things. Okay, let's go back. Cool. Let me refresh one more time. Now, if I click on this add to cart, see, a new object appeared here, and this is updated. Fair enough. If I remove it, this is updated and this is done. So now I want you to see this. Check one thing. I am using the component, which is basically the React component. And here I have things like highlight, updates when components re-render. So anytime there's a component re-render happening, the moment I click on this add to cart, let's see how many components will re-render. One thing that I will do just before we actually begin this, here in the header, rather than here, I will say it's a red of say 100. Then inside this the card, I will make it as bg of green, let's say 100. Let's see. Okay, so that we understand what is what component. Let's also go inside my products. I mean here we are in side, so let's call it as blue of 100, and I will call this one, which is a section, which is of bg of yellow of 100. Hopefully everything is clear. Okay, cool. And then this is like my footer. So footer goes right here. Rather than this, I'll just call it, okay, red, blue, green, yellow. What is cyan? Cyan is with me. Yeah, we have that. Okay, and then I don't have to worry about this. Okay, now check all the components. We have a header, we have a footer, we have a card item here, we have the product listing, we have, okay, one more thing, card count. Where is the card count? Here it is. So we will say indigo. Cool, let's see. Okay, so we have the header, we have this card here, we have this card item, we have product listing, we have this license, I mean this card, we have this footer. Now when I click on this, check what happened. Let me just keep on clicking it again and again. By the way, this will go because you have the key same, but you can figure it out what is happening. Just keep on checking what will happen again and again. See, the header is re-rendering, that card component itself is re-rendering, this card item component is re-rendering, every single card is re-rendering, the product listing component is re-rendering, and basically all the card is re-rendering. Not to mention, if I just refresh it, not to mention even this will re-render. Check this, right? Even this re-rendered. Yet if you think about it, when I click on this, the only things that should re-render is this, and I mean not in this scenario, but in basically in our use case only this and this, right? Because we are not passing the data here, because we are not passing, I mean in footer, at least that should not re-render, but it will, because in our current situation we are maintaining all the states in this app. Okay, and this is this first React way of flow, because when the parent changes in terms of state, child is modifying itself, I mean re-rendering itself. Fair enough. Cool. Then let's come to the Redux solution. Okay, not to mention, as you can see, it was a bunch of horrid way of doing things, right? I mean, for this small thing, yes, it is not much, but if you think about it, it is pretty much like way too much, right? What is the time right now? It's already too late. Cool, why not? So basically you have this, well, you have to have this extension called React Developer Tools and Redux Dev Tools. Then in this, you will then reload your window, Dheeraj, and then here you will have a components. Then you will have the settings inside this component, and here you will have in general highlight updates when component re-render, and that's it. Record why each component rendered by profiling. If you want, you can do that. Otherwise, this is what it is. There's a bunch of debugging and all of that. Cool. Okay. I'm now just looking into whether I should continue today or should I continue tomorrow. It's been too long, but we can make it as part 1 and we can do it later. Let's see. Nah, let's do it. Let's see what happens. So I'll just refresh it one more time. Okay. Now let's come to our Redux Toolkit solution. What is that? Well, you see, I should just remove everything from here. I'll just open it one more time. Yeah. So for the Redux Toolkit to work, I have created a folder called app. Within this app, I have created a folder called store.ts. Okay. Now, contrast this with the code that you saw a little while ago of the old Redux way of doing things. There were a bunch of imports. Now check this out. You have a card. Let's also create one folder called products, like this. Okay. So this is my store.ts. In this, the things that we will actually utilize is, let me just remove everything for now. Okay, let's go one by one, what we are going to actually do. The first thing in this store you will have to actually import is called configure store, which is right here, which is coming from reduxjs toolkit. Then we will create a store which will be using configure store. It is a function which will take an options. Here it will take a reducer, which will be an option, an object. Okay. And then here you can have a bunch of different reducers like products. For now, let it be nothing for now. And we can also have cart or cart items. Let's call it null. It will give an error because this is not what it actually requires. It requires a reducer. Then we will export it as default, as store. Okay, and that's it. That's all you need to do, to be honest, in terms of if you're not using some sort of like a Redux. I mean, if you're not creating your own hooks and all of that, this is all you need to do. Let me repaste this and let's go back and see what I've done. There's a configure store, fair enough. And then this is the configure store that I have done. And here's the store that I am exporting. This right here is basically for the TypeScript. So if you check here, you will find that if you export the type, I mean, we are defining this type as root state, which is going to be a return type, which is coming from store.getState, type of store.getState. This store is nothing but this one. And the return type of that is now here, which is root state. If you check here, the root state by default has cart in it, which is a product state props type. Fair enough. If we have, let's say, product here, it will have product here as well. We'll talk about that as well. Then this is an app dispatch, which is of type of store.dispatch. Why do we require that? Because we are going to create a hook called use app dispatch, which will be of type this, and it will be basically giving us back this use dispatch, but with the type, okay, of this. So this will be helpful, to be honest. This is coming from react-redux. Like I mentioned, use dispatch is a hook that comes from react-redux. Use dispatch is a react-redux. Cool. So that's what we have done. Now, within this reducer object, if you check here, what is a reducer? An object where we define actions that is what I have done. That is performed to mutate the data. Okay. So what I am doing is I'm saying take this reducer and I'm just simply passing this reducer here, right? So that reducer is the reducer which is coming from here, not this one. This is an object that is basically saying make sure that the cart from here onwards is treated as a reducer. I mean, this is a basic JavaScript. I'm just saying rename it. Okay. Now let's go back to our cart folder within this app from where we are getting the slice. Now let's talk about what is a slice. So consider this. You can understand it this way better. Imagine that this is a bread. Okay. And we'll call it a store. This is an analogy, so just understand it this way. This is a bread. Okay. Now the bread has a bunch of different slices. I mean, this is a loaf of bread, but what we actually use is slices, right? Hopefully it is understandable what I'm trying to say. One of these slices, let's say, is cart. Another, let me also just make it small. Okay. Another one of these slides, what I'm doing, let's say, is users. Another one of these slides is, say, products. I hope you're getting the idea. All I'm saying is this store is basically a bread loaf. You can understand it that way. And each of the slices is a part of that store. So there's a cart slice, there's a user slice, there's a product slice, and each of those slices will contain everything that they require in order to function. Namely, they will contain their own reducers, aka actions, and that's it. They will contain their actions. Okay. Let's go and check it out. So we have inside the cart, we have cart slice. Let's see what all the things that slice actually contains. The first thing that it contains, by the way, is called initial state. It then contains actions. It contains the name of the slice, and it contains basically the reducers. Okay, so that's what the slice contains. It is basically in itself everything that you need for that particular slice from that entire bread. Hopefully you get it. I cannot figure it out more uh better better wording here. Okay, so let's put it this way. All right, so first is my product. Let me check it here. I can just remove it from here. Okay, first is this is my cart slice. Okay, what I will do is I will make sure that the count here is available, but it is just optional one because I'm not trying to use different properties here. So in my cart slice, I have cart items, then I will have cart items item count. This will be 0. This cart item is going to be what it is saying. This is a product. Okay, you know what? Let me just do it this way. What should I do? For the sake of quickness, I'll just create it this way. I mean, these are just type anyways, right? Fair enough. This is card item. This is card item count. So let me put it this way. Okay. So in my slice, there are a few things that I have to do. First, I will get a create slice function from reduxjs toolkit. Forget about this for now. This is TypeScript's thing. This is the main thing. Create slice function from Redux Toolkit. Then I will define an initial state which is going to contain whatever I want to contain within my cart. Basically the entire cart thing. So in our case, it is cart items and cart item count. Okay. Then I will export my cart slice and I will create it as cart slice. Now, if I hover over here, you will see that it is of type of slice. Okay. It has these actions which we have defined inside the reducers. So basically they are the reducers and it is of name cart. Okay, we'll see what we have done here. Let's see. So within this create slice, there's a name that we are passing. I have called it cart. You can call it anything you want. This is the name that will appear most. I mean, this is basically something that it requires. We'll see about it. Then we will have initial state, which is this. Then we will have reducers. Okay. All I have to do here is basically make this as card items. Okay. We'll see. So reducers are basically an object which will contain a bunch of different actions. So we have two actions, right? We have add item to card. We also have remove item from card. Okay. Okay. Understood. So add item to cart will then get, and this is by default, this is not something that I'm doing. This is something that it will get to object. This is default Redux method. I'm not naming it anything. You have to name it as state, which is writable draft. You have to name it as action. Okay. Which is a payload. Action contains, if you check, payload as well as type. You saw my previous showcasing, right, where we were dispatching the type. That's what it is. That was the action with type and the payload, and this slice automatically contains or creates everything for you. You don't have to create all those actions and types and switch cases and all of that. This is very easy. Now we get the state, we get the action. Okay, the action I am saying will contain a product. Fair enough, let's call it that. Then I'm saying what you should do is in the state, which is this, right, dot cart items, which is this, you push the action dot payload dot product in it. State.cart items is possibly undefined. This is because I have made all these things as undefined. So let's just make it as this, and this should work. Hopefully this is not going to be the case in production apps, but I'm just showing it like this. Okay, so in the state.cartItems.push, you are going to push the product that is coming when you click on that button. Fair enough? Cool. Similarly, when you click on that remove button, all you are doing the same logic. You are filtering the product based on that ID, which is coming inside the payload. So I am right here saying that I am going to be getting the product, but for now, let's see, because there we have to pass the entire product. Here we can actually do things maybe better. Okay, here it is. And then once the slice is actually defined, we are exporting the default as cart slice dot reducer. Let's see what it actually does. This will be from here. If you check here, it is basically a reducer that is being exported as default. Okay, and apart from that, we are exporting these actions as const from cart slice dot actions. All right, hopefully this is clear. If it is not clear, let me know. I can actually do things better maybe. But if you check this code, this one single slice file have done a bunch of things. First, it defined the initial state. Second, it defined the reducers. Third, it automatically